Can I stay? He follows me. The millionaire hesitated, and until a shadow appeared behind the glass. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across Main Street as Lily stepped off the bus, her worn leather suitcase in one hand and a faded backpack slung over her shoulder. The brakes of the departing bus hissed behind her, and just like that, she was alone in Maple Ridge. She took a deep breath, inhaling the crisp autumn air that carried hints of fallen leaves and wood smoke. It was different from the city, cleaner, fresher, promising something new. Her eyes stung a little, but she blinked back the tears. This wasn't the time for crying over Mark and their messy breakup. "Welcome to Maple Ridge," read the cheerful sign ahead, its wooden surface weathered but well-maintained. Maple leaves had been carved into its corners, painted in fading red. The whole town seemed to match that sign, a little worn around the edges, but warm and inviting. Lily adjusted her backpack and started walking down the sidewalk. Old brick buildings lined both sides of the street, their windows displaying everything from handmade quilts to antique furniture. Flower boxes hung from second-story windows, still bright with late-blooming petunias. An elderly couple passed by, offering friendly nods. "Afternoon," the man said, tipping his cap. Lily found herself smiling, her first genuine smile in weeks. In the city, strangers barely made eye contact. The wheels of her suitcase clattered over the uneven brick sidewalk as she made her way toward Cedar Street, where she'd rented a small apartment above the town's bookstore. Her savings wouldn't last long, which was why she'd been relieved to land a job at the Morning Roast Cafe even before arriving. The interview had been over the phone, and the owner, Ethan Montgomery, had seemed kind, if a bit reserved. He'd offered her the job after just one conversation, something that wouldn't have happened in the city. As she turned onto Cedar Street, the scent of coffee and freshly baked goods wafted through the air. The Morning Roast occupied the corner building, its large windows gleaming in the late afternoon light. Inside, she could see customers chatting over steaming mugs, looking comfortable and at home. Lily checked her watch. She still had time before meeting her landlord. Maybe she could stop in, get a feel for the place before starting work tomorrow. Her heart fluttered with nervous energy as she pushed open the door, a small bell announcing her arrival. The cafe was warm and inviting, with exposed brick walls and wooden beams crossing the ceiling. Mismatched vintage chairs surrounded solid oak tables, and local artwork decorated the walls. It felt lived in, loved. "Can I help you?" a deep voice asked. Lily turned to find herself facing a tall man with kind eyes and an approachable smile. His dark hair was slightly disheveled, and he wore a navy blue apron with the cafe's logo embroidered on it. "I'm Lily," she said, her voice coming out softer than intended. "I start work tomorrow?" Recognition lit up his face. "Lily, of course. I'm Ethan. Welcome to Maple Ridge." His smile widened, genuine and warm. "You're a bit early, but that's perfect. Would you like a coffee? On the house, of course." The knot of anxiety in Lily's chest began to loosen. There was something about Ethan's easy manner that made her feel immediately at ease. "That would be nice, thank you." "Make yourself comfortable," he said, gesturing to an empty table near the window. "I'll bring you our house blend, unless you prefer something else." "The house blend sounds perfect," Lily replied, settling into a cushioned chair that seemed made for long, comfortable conversations. Ethan leaned against the counter, pretending to review inventory sheets while watching his newest employee work. Lily moved between tables with an easy grace, her smile reaching her eyes each time she interacted with a customer. She had a way of making everyone feel special, like they were the only person in the room. "Here you go, Mrs. Henderson," Lily said, setting down a steaming mug. I added just a touch of cinnamon, like you mentioned you enjoyed yesterday. The elderly woman beamed. Oh, aren't you thoughtful? Ethan, this one's a keeper. He nodded, trying to maintain his professional demeanor, despite the warmth spreading through his chest. Lily had only been working at the morning roast for 2 weeks, but she'd already memorized most of the regulars' preferences. A young mother struggled through the door with a stroller, and Lily was there in an instant, holding the door wide and helping navigate the awkward entry. The usual spot by the window? She asked, already clearing space for the stroller. Ethan found himself watching her more than the books in front of him. The way she tucked her hair behind her ear when she concentrated on getting an order just right. How she'd pause to chat with lonely customers who clearly needed someone to talk to. The genuine laugh she shared when old Mr. Peterson told his corny jokes. He shook his head, forcing his attention back to the inventory sheets. The cafe was his responsibility, his family's legacy. He couldn't afford distractions, no matter how charming they might be. The afternoon rush slowly died down, and the last customers filtered out as closing time approached. Lily wiped down tables with careful attention, humming softly to herself. You did great today, Ethan said, flipping the sign to closed. Would you like to stay for coffee? I always enjoy a cup after closing. Lily looked up, surprise and pleasure crossing her face. I'd love to. They settled into a corner table, the cafe feeling different in the quiet of closing time. Shadows lengthened across the wooden floors, and the setting sun painted the brick walls in warm, golden tones. I noticed you drawing during your break, Ethan said, pouring coffee into 2 of his favorite handmade mugs. Are you an artist? Lily wrapped her hands around her mug. I used to be. Or, well, I wanted to be. I studied art in college, but then life happened, you know? What kind of art? Watercolors mainly. I love how unpredictable they can be, how they flow and blend in ways you can't completely control. Her eyes lit up as she spoke, and Ethan found himself leaning forward, drawn in by her enthusiasm. Do you still paint? Not as much as I'd like to. A shadow crossed her face. My ex, he wasn't very supportive of it. Said it was a waste of time. Ethan frowned. Art's never a waste of time. That's what I thought too. Lily took a sip of coffee, then smiled. But that's in the past. Coming here, starting fresh, it feels like maybe I can pick up the brushes again. What made you choose Maple Ridge? Ethan asked, curious about what brought someone like her to their small town. I needed somewhere different, somewhere I could breathe. She traced the rim of her mug with one finger. The city was suffocating after everything fell apart. When I saw the job posting for your cafe, it felt like a sign. Ethan nodded, understanding the need for escape all too well, though he kept that thought to himself. Instead, he asked about her favorite artists, watching as she came alive talking about color theory and composition. Her passion was contagious, and he found himself completely absorbed in their conversation, even as he maintained his careful distance. Over the next few weeks, Ethan found himself spending more time at the cafe during Lily's shifts. He told himself it was just to keep an eye on things, but deep down, he knew better. The morning sun would stream through the windows, catching the highlights in her hair as she sketched in her notebook during quiet moments. Today, he sat at his usual corner table, supposedly reviewing paperwork, but his eyes kept drifting to where Lily stood behind the counter. Between customers, she'd pull out her sketchbook, her pencil moving with quick, confident strokes. More coffee? Lily asked, appearing at his side with a fresh pot. Please. He gestured to her sketchbook. What are you working on? A slight blush colored her cheeks. Oh, just some rough sketches of the cafe. The morning light creates such beautiful shadows on the brick walls. May I see? Lily hesitated for a moment before retrieving her sketchbook. She handed it to him carefully, as if sharing a piece of herself. Ethan's breath caught as he flipped through the pages. Her drawings captured more than just the physical space. They somehow managed to convey the warmth and comfort of the cafe. Quick sketches of regular customers caught their personalities perfectly. Mrs. Henderson's gentle smile, Mr. Peterson's mischievous grin. "These are incredible," he said softly, pausing at a detailed watercolor of the cafe's exterior. The morning light in the painting seemed to make the old brick building glow. "They're just sketches," Lily demurred, reaching for the book. "No, really." Ethan held on to the sketchbook for a moment longer. "You have a real talent for capturing the essence of things, not just their appearance." The bell above the door chimed, and Lily hurried to greet the new customers. Ethan watched as she took their orders, her smile genuine and warm. His mind wandered to the empty walls of his family's gallery just down the street. When the rush died down, he approached the counter where Lily was wiping down the espresso machine. His heart beat a little faster as he cleared his throat. "I've been thinking," he started, then paused, suddenly nervous. "My family owns the art gallery on Main Street." Lily looked up, surprised. "The Montgomery Gallery? That beautiful old building with the bay windows?" "Yes." He fidgeted with a napkin. "We have an opening in our schedule next month. Would you be interested in showing your work there?" Lily's eyes widened. "What? No, I couldn't possibly. That's a real gallery. My sketches are just—" "Beautiful," Ethan finished firmly. "Your work deserves to be seen, Lily." She bit her lower lip, uncertainty written across her face. "But it's been so long since I've done any serious painting, and these are just casual sketches." "You have real talent," Ethan insisted, his voice gentle but firm. "I wouldn't offer if I didn't believe in your work. We could start small, maybe a collection of your local scenes. Your watercolors of the cafe and town would resonate with people here." "You really think so?" Hope flickered in her eyes, though she still seemed hesitant. "I know so. I've been around art my whole life, Lily. I know what moves people." He smiled encouragingly. "Just think about it. No pressure." Lily looked down at her sketchbook, then back at Ethan. "Can I have a few days to consider it?" "Of course," he nodded, relief flooding through him that she hadn't immediately refused. "Take all the time you need." The weeks leading up to the exhibition flew by in a blur of activity. Lily spent every spare moment working on new pieces, her small apartment gradually filling with canvases and the sharp scent of oil paint. Ethan made it his mission to stop by her workspace each day, always carrying either coffee or encouraging words. "These are coming along beautifully," he said one afternoon, studying a half-finished painting of the town square. Lily had captured the way the sunset painted the old buildings in shades of gold and rose. "You think so?" Lily stepped back, squinting at her work. "I'm worried the colors are too bold." "That's exactly what makes it special." Ethan moved closer, his shoulder nearly touching hers. "You see things differently. That's what art is about." His presence beside her made her pulse quicken, but she pushed the feeling aside. "I just hope other people see what you see." "They will." His confidence in her never wavered. As the exhibition date drew closer, their planning sessions often stretched into long conversations. Sometimes they'd sit in the empty cafe after closing, sharing stories over cooling cups of coffee. Lily found herself looking forward to these moments more than she wanted to admit. The night of the exhibition was a whirlwind of faces and congratulations. Lily felt almost dizzy with happiness, as person after person praised her work. Through it all, Ethan remained nearby, a steady presence that helped keep her nerves at bay. When the last guest finally left, Ethan touched her elbow gently. "Come on, I want to show you something." He drove them to a quiet spot by the lake, where an old wooden dock stretched out over the water. The moon hung low and full, casting silver light across the gentle waves. They sat at the edge, their feet dangling above the water. "Thank you," Lily said softly, "for believing in me, for all of this." "You did all the hard work," Ethan replied. "I just provided the wall space." Lily laughed, then grew quiet. The peaceful setting seemed to invite confidences. "You know, after my ex left, I stopped painting completely. I couldn't even look at my brushes without feeling like a failure." Ethan turned to face her. "What happened?" "He was another artist, more successful than me. Lily took a deep breath. "He said my work was too simple, too ordinary, that I'd never make it as a real artist. When he left, I believed him." "He was wrong," Ethan said firmly. "Your work speaks to people because it shows the beauty in ordinary moments. That's a gift." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment before Ethan spoke again. "My family has owned the gallery for 4 generations. Every Montgomery has dedicated their life to it." He ran a hand through his hair. "Sometimes I wonder if I'm running it because I want to, or because it's expected of me." "Is that why you opened the cafe?" "Partly. The cafe is mine, just mine. No family expectations, no pressure to maintain a legacy." He smiled ruefully. "Though my parents still remind me regularly that the gallery should be my priority." Lily studied his profile in the moonlight, seeing the weight of responsibility in the set of his shoulders. "It must be hard, carrying all that history." "It's complicated," he admitted. "I love the gallery, I do. But sometimes I wish—" He trailed off, leaving the thought unfinished. The lake lapped gently at the dock posts, a soothing rhythm in the quiet night. Neither felt the need to fill the silence, content to sit together under the vast, starlit sky, sharing the weight of their confessions. The Montgomery family's arrival brought an immediate change to Maple Ridge's peaceful atmosphere. Their sleek, black luxury car looked out of place parked in front of the quaint cafe, much like the perfectly tailored outfits they wore while stepping onto the small-town sidewalk. Ethan stood straighter when he saw them, his usual relaxed demeanor replaced by something more formal. "Mother, Father," he greeted them with careful politeness. "I wasn't expecting you until dinner." "We thought we'd surprise you, darling," Mrs. Montgomery said, air-kissing his cheek. Her pearls caught the sunlight as she moved. "And see this charming little establishment of yours during business hours." Lily was wiping down tables when they entered, and she felt Mrs. Montgomery's appraising gaze before she even turned around. She smoothed her simple uniform and tried to smile warmly. "You must be the new waitress Ethan mentioned," Mrs. Montgomery said, her voice honey-sweet but her eyes cool. "Lisa, was it?" "Lily," Ethan corrected quickly. "And she's also the artist whose work we're featuring at the gallery." "Oh yes, the local art exhibit." Mrs. Montgomery's slight pause spoke volumes. "How community-minded of you, dear." Throughout the afternoon, Mrs. Montgomery's comments remained perfectly polite on the surface, but carried subtle barbs underneath. When Lily served their coffee, she remarked about the quaint way the cafe did things, so different from the high-end establishments they frequented in the city. When discussion turned to the gallery exhibition, she spoke about other artists they knew, dropping names of famous painters and collectors, each reference highlighting the gap between their world and Lily's. "You know, the Ashworth's daughter just opened her own gallery in Manhattan," Mrs. Montgomery mentioned casually. "She and Ethan practically grew up together. Such a lovely girl, and from such an established family." Lily felt each word like a tiny paper cut, small but stinging. She kept her head down, focusing on her work, but she couldn't help noticing how Ethan grew quieter with each passing hour. Later, in the gallery where his parents were examining the latest installations, Ethan tried to speak up. "Mother, I wish you'd give Lily a chance. She's talented and she's—" "Darling, Mrs." Montgomery cut him off gently. "I'm sure she's a very nice girl, but you have to think about the gallery's reputation. We have a certain standard to maintain. The Montgomery name means something in the art world." "This isn't about the gallery," Ethan said, his voice strained. "This is about what, exactly?" His mother's tone sharpened slightly. "Ethan, you've worked so hard to build your reputation as a serious curator. Do you really want to risk that for a waitress who does little paintings of local scenery?" Ethan ran his hands through his hair, a gesture of frustration Lily had come to know well. "Her work is meaningful. It connects with people. Isn't that what art is supposed to do?" "Art is supposed to elevate, to challenge, to push boundaries," his father interjected. "Not just please people." Ethan fell silent, the weight of generations of expectations visible in his slumped shoulders. When Lily saw him later that evening, he barely met her eyes, murmuring something about being busy with family matters before retreating to his office. The warmth that had been growing between them felt suddenly distant, replaced by a chill that had nothing to do with the autumn air outside. The days following the Montgomery family visit felt different at the cafe. The warm, comfortable atmosphere that had developed between Lily and Ethan had grown cold, like a forgotten cup of coffee left on the counter. Lily noticed it in 100 small ways. Ethan no longer lingered to chat during her shifts. Their easy conversations about art and life had dwindled to brief, professional exchanges about work schedules and inventory orders. When their eyes did meet, he'd quickly look away, busying himself with paperwork or his phone. During her break, Lily sat at her usual corner table, absently stirring her tea. Her sketchbook lay open, but the pages remained blank. She couldn't help but remember how Ethan used to peek over her shoulder, offering gentle encouragement about her drawings. Now, he barely acknowledged her presence. "Maybe I imagined it all," she whispered to herself, watching the tea leaves swirl in her cup. Those quiet moments by the lake, the way he'd listened to her stories, how his eyes had lit up when discussing her art. Had she read too much into his kindness? Sarah, another waitress, slid into the seat across from her. "He's been weird ever since his parents left," she said, nodding toward Ethan's office. "Never seen him this stressed before." Lily managed a weak smile. "I'm sure he has a lot on his mind." "More like his mother has a lot on his mind," Sarah muttered, then caught herself. "Sorry, not my business." The afternoon dragged on, each hour feeling heavier than the last. Lily was restocking supplies in the storage room when she heard footsteps behind her. She turned to find Ethan standing in the doorway, looking uncomfortable. "Lily, he started, then stopped, running his hand through his hair in that familiar gesture of frustration. "It's okay," she said quickly, turning back to the shelves. "You don't have to explain anything. But I do." His voice was strained. "You deserve to know why I've been distant." Lily set down the container she was holding, finally turning to face him fully. The fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows across his troubled features. "My family," he began, leaning against the doorframe. "They have certain expectations. The gallery, the cafe, they're part of my inheritance. But there are conditions." "Conditions?" Lily's throat felt dry. Ethan's laugh was hollow. "They're very traditional. Old money, old values. They expect me to marry someone from their social circle, someone who understands their world." He swallowed hard. "They've been pushing me to reconnect with Charlotte Ashworth. Our families have known each other for generations." The words hit Lily like a physical blow. She gripped the edge of the shelf behind her, steadying herself. They're pressuring you to get married? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. If I don't follow their wishes, I lose everything. The gallery, the cafe, my trust fund? His eyes met hers, filled with conflict. It's not just about the money. These businesses employ people, support local artists. I have responsibilities. The fluorescent light buzzed overhead, filling the heavy silence between them. Lily felt as if the small storage room was closing in, the shelves of supplies suddenly too close, too confining. I see, she managed to say, though she wasn't sure she did. The weight of his confession hung in the air, making it hard to breathe. Ethan took a step toward her, then stopped, his hand half raised as if to reach for her. But he let it fall back to his side, and the distance between them felt like miles. Lily sat cross-legged on her apartment floor, surrounded by scattered art supplies and half-finished canvases. Sunlight streamed through her small window, catching dust motes that danced in the air. Her paintbrush moved almost on its own, creating swirls of blue and gray that matched her mood. She hadn't slept much after Ethan's confession. His words kept echoing in her mind. Responsibility, inheritance, expectations. The weight of his family name seemed to crush the delicate connection they'd been building. What did you expect? She muttered to herself, dabbing more paint onto her canvas. The image taking shape was abstract. Stormy clouds and turbulent waves, all in shades of blue and gray. He comes from a completely different world. Her phone buzzed with a text from Sarah asking if she was okay. Lily ignored it, focusing instead on the way the colors blended on her canvas. Painting had always been her escape, her way of processing emotions too complex for words. The afternoon light shifted, casting long shadows across her makeshift studio. She'd been painting for hours, her hands stained with various shades of paint. 3 new canvases leaned against the wall, each one darker and more emotional than the last. A knock at her door startled her from her artistic trance. Lily froze, paintbrush hovering over the canvas. Another knock, more hesitant this time. Lily? Ethan's voice was muffled through the door. Please, can we talk? She looked down at herself, paint-splattered clothes, messy hair, bare feet. Not exactly how she wanted him to see her. But then again, maybe this was exactly who she was. Messy, creative, decidedly not from his polished world. When she opened the door, Ethan stood there looking as disheveled as she felt. His usually neat shirt was wrinkled, his hair tousled as if he'd been running his hands through it all day. I've been driving around for hours, he admitted, his voice rough. I couldn't. I needed to see you. Lily stepped back, letting him into her small apartment. He looked out of place among her artwork and second-hand furniture, like an expensive painting in a discount store. I'm sorry, he said, turning to face her. I'm sorry for pulling away, for letting my family's expectations come between us. I'm just... He let out a shaky breath. I'm terrified. Of what? Lily asked, though she already knew the answer. Of losing everything I've worked for. The gallery, the cafe. They're not just businesses to me. They're my life's work. He moved closer, his eyes fixed on hers. But I'm also terrified of losing you. Ethan. Lily wrapped her arms around herself, paint-stained fingers gripping her elbows. I know it's not fair to put this on you, he continued. You came here for a fresh start, not to get caught up in my family drama. But when I'm with you, I feel like I can be myself. Not the Montgomery heir, just me. I never asked you to choose, Lily said softly. I know. He reached out, hesitating before gently touching her paint-stained hand. That's what makes this harder. You accept me as I am, while my family, they have this image of who I should be, who I should love. The word love hung in the air between them, making Lily's heart skip. She looked down at their joined hands, his clean and manicured, hers covered in artistic chaos. Such a perfect picture of their differences. "I'm scared too," she admitted. "Scared that no matter how strong our feelings are, it won't be enough against generations of expectations." The morning sun cast long shadows across Lily's tiny kitchen table as she sorted through her mail. Bills, advertisements, and a thick cream-colored envelope that caught her attention. The return address showed a law firm she didn't recognize. Harrison and Wells, attorneys at law. "That's weird," she muttered, turning the envelope over in her hands. Her heart beat a little faster as she carefully opened it, pulling out several sheets of expensive letterhead paper. "Dear Ms. Palmer," she read aloud, her voice barely above a whisper. "In reviewing the estate of your late grandmother, Eleanor Palmer, we have discovered documents that may be of significant interest to you." Lily's hands trembled slightly. Her grandmother had passed away 5 years ago, and she thought everything had been settled. She continued reading, her eyes growing wider with each paragraph. "During our recent archival review, we found correspondence between your grandmother and Victoria Montgomery dated from 1965 to 1980. Lily's breath caught in her throat. Montgomery, Ethan's family name. These letters reveal a close friendship between the two women, particularly during their time working together at the Maple Ridge Historical Society. She sat down hard in her kitchen chair, the letter crackling in her grip. The next paragraphs detailed how her grandmother and Ethan's grandmother had been not just friends, but confidants who had helped each other through difficult times. There were mentions of shared holidays, family celebrations, and a deep bond that had somehow been forgotten over time. Among the documents, the letter continued, we found photographs, personal correspondence, and several legal documents that suggest the Montgomery and Palmer families were once deeply connected. Your grandmother served as godmother to Charles Montgomery, Ethan's father. Lily's coffee grew cold beside her as she read and reread the letter. There were more details, references to joint business ventures, shared properties, and a mysterious falling out that had occurred in the early 1980s. The lawyer suggested meeting to discuss the implications of these discoveries. Her phone felt heavy in her hand as she dialed Ethan's number. When his voicemail picked up, she left a brief message. "Can you come over? It's important." While waiting, Lily spread the contents of the envelope across her table. There were photocopies of old photographs, her grandmother, young and smiling, standing next to a woman who had Ethan's eyes. In another, both families posed together at what looked like a Christmas celebration. The knock at her door made her jump. She opened it to find Ethan looking concerned, his brow furrowed. "What's wrong?" he asked, stepping inside. "Your message sounded urgent." Lily picked up the letter with shaking hands. "You need to read this," she said, holding it out to him. Ethan took the letter, his eyes scanning the first page. His expression shifted from confusion to disbelief as he continued reading. He sank into a chair, looking at the photographs spread across the table. "That's my grandmother," he said softly, touching one of the photos. "And your grandmother, they were friends?" "More than friends, according to these letters," Lily replied, picking up another document. "They were like family. Your grandmother made my grandmother his godmother." Ethan looked up at her, his face pale. "How did we not know about this? Why didn't anyone ever mention it?" They stood in her small kitchen, surrounded by evidence of a shared history neither of them had known existed. The weight of this revelation hung in the air between them, shifting everything they thought they knew about their family's connection. The Maple Ridge Public Library stood like a weathered sentinel, its brick facade telling stories of decades past. Ethan held the heavy wooden door open for Lily as they stepped into the hushed interior. their footsteps echoing on the worn marble floor. "The local history section is this way," Ethan whispered, leading her past rows of books. His familiarity with the library spoke of countless hours spent here during his youth. They settled at a corner table, surrounded by microfilm readers and dusty archival boxes. Lily spread out the lawyer's letter between them, while Ethan pulled out his laptop. "I've already requested access to the Historical Society's records," he said, typing quickly. "But there's so much that isn't digitized. We'll need to go through these old newspapers, too." Lily nodded, pulling on cotton gloves before carefully handling the delicate newspapers. "I'll start with the social pages from the 60s. That's when our grandmothers first met, according to the letter." Hours ticked by as they immersed themselves in the past. The quiet rustle of papers and soft hum of the microfilm reader created a gentle rhythm to their research. Occasionally, one would tap the other's arm, sharing a discovered detail or connection. "Look at this," Lily said, pointing to a yellowed newspaper clipping. "Your grandmother and mine co-chaired the hospital charity ball in 1967. They raised more money than any previous year." Ethan leaned closer, his shoulder brushing hers. "And here, they both served on the library board together. They must have spent a lot of time in this very building." As the afternoon light slanted through tall windows, their discoveries painted a picture of two families deeply woven into the fabric of Maple Ridge society. The Montgomerys and Palmers had shared business ventures, attended the same social functions, and vacationed together. "I don't understand," Ethan muttered, running a hand through his hair. "How did all this get forgotten? Why didn't anyone tell us?" Lily was carefully examining a stack of old correspondence when something caught her eye. "Ethan," she said softly, "I think I found something." She gently pulled out an envelope that had been stuck between two larger documents. The paper was thick and expensive, the handwriting elegant but hurried. It was addressed to Eleanor Palmer, Lily's grandmother, and dated 1980. Ethan moved his chair closer as Lily carefully unfolded the letter. His breath caught as he recognized the signature at the bottom. "That's my grandfather's handwriting." They read together, their heads bent close over the faded ink. "My dear Eleanor, I write this in complete confidence, knowing you are the only one I can trust with the truth of what happened. The scandal threatens to destroy everything our family has built, but your counsel has been my anchor through this storm. Victoria cannot know the full extent of it. It would break her heart. Your suggestion about the overseas accounts may be our only hope." The letter continued, hinting at financial impropriety and desperate measures taken to protect the Montgomery family name. It ended with a plea for continued secrecy and gratitude for Eleanor's unwavering support. Lily looked at Ethan, whose face had gone pale. "Your grandfather was hiding something big," she said gently, "and my grandmother helped him keep it quiet." "This must be why the families drifted apart," Ethan said, his voice rough. "Whatever happened, it was serious enough to break decades of friendship." They sat in stunned silence, the weight of this revelation settling over them. The letter between them seemed to pulse with untold stories, connecting their families in ways they never imagined. The afternoon sun cast long shadows through the library windows as Lily and Ethan packed away the old documents. Their fingers brushed as they carefully returned letters to their folders, and neither pulled away immediately. The weight of their discoveries hung in the air between them, making every small interaction feel more significant. "We should get coffee," Ethan suggested, his voice soft in the library's quiet. "Process everything we've learned." They walked to Morning Brew, the cafe now closed for the day. Ethan unlocked the door, flipping on just enough lights to see by. The familiar space felt different in the evening darkness, more intimate somehow. While Ethan prepared their drinks, Lily settled into a corner booth, spreading out copies they'd made of the most important documents. Her grandmother's neat handwriting filled the margins of several pages, and she traced the words with her finger. They were more than just social acquaintances, she mused, as Ethan set 2 steaming mugs on the table. Your grandfather trusted my grandmother completely. Ethan slid into the booth beside her, rather than across, their shoulders touching. They had a real friendship, the kind where you trust someone with your darkest secrets. He turned to look at her, his eyes reflecting the dim lights. Like us. Lily's heart skipped a beat. The past few weeks of research had brought them closer than ever, sharing theories and discoveries, staying up late parsing through old documents. They'd developed a rhythm, anticipating each other's thoughts, finishing each other's sentences. It's different now, isn't it? Lily asked softly, meeting his gaze. Everything we've learned, everything we've shared? Ethan nodded, his hand finding hers on the table. I can't stop thinking about you, Lily. Every new thing we discover about our families, every moment we spend together. He took a shaky breath. I'm falling for you, hard, and it terrifies me. Why? She whispered, though she already knew the answer. My family. He squeezed her hand. If they find out about us, especially now with all these old secrets coming to light. His voice trailed off, and he looked down at their intertwined fingers. They could make things very difficult, not just for me, but for you too. Lily's heart ached at the pain in his voice. She understood his fear. They'd seen firsthand how the Montgomery family handled threats to their reputation. But the thought of walking away from what they'd found together seemed impossible. Then we don't tell them, she said, surprising herself with the suggestion. Not yet, anyway. Not until we understand everything that happened between our families. Not until we figure out what it means for us. Ethan looked up, hope flickering in his eyes. You'd be willing to keep us a secret? For now? Lily nodded, squeezing his hand. While we figure things out, we can be careful. Take our time. She managed a small smile. Besides, there's something kind of poetic about it. Our grandparents kept secrets together, and now here we are. Here we are, Ethan echoed, his free hand coming up to cup her cheek. His touch was gentle, tentative, as if she might disappear at any moment. I don't want to hide how I feel about you, but I also don't want to risk losing you. Then we'll be smart about it, Lily said. We'll protect what we have while we work out the rest. They sat there in the dimly lit cafe, hands clasped, shoulders touching, the weight of family secrets and new love settling around them like a familiar blanket. Outside, Maple Ridge continued its quiet evening routine, unaware of the promises being made in the darkness of morning brew. Victoria Montgomery's heels clicked sharply against the hardwood floors of Ethan's office above the cafe. Her pristine designer suit and perfectly coiffed hair seemed out of place in the cozy space, like a shark in a koi pond. I thought I made myself clear about that waitress, she said, her voice as crisp as her appearance. She stood before his desk, one perfectly manicured hand resting on its surface. Ethan kept his eyes on the paperwork in front of him, trying to steady his racing heart. Her name is Lily, Mother. I don't care what her name is. Victoria's fingers drummed against the desk. What I care about is protecting this family's legacy. You've been seen with her all over town, spending hours in the library of all places. She wrinkled her nose. People are talking, Ethan. Let them talk. He finally looked up, meeting his mother's stern gaze. This isn't a game. Victoria's voice sharpened. The Montgomery name means something in this world. We have responsibilities, expectations to meet. That girl... Lily, Ethan interrupted, his voice firm. That girl is a distraction you cannot afford. The board meeting is in 3 months. Your father expects you to take over as CEO, but only if you prove yourself worthy of the position. Ethan's jaw tightened. The familiar weight of family expectations pressed down on his shoulders, but this time, something felt different. He thought of Lily's smile, her kindness, the way she saw him as more than just a Montgomery. "And what exactly makes someone worthy?" he asked, standing slowly. "Marrying the right person? Playing by your rules? Living the life you've planned out for me?" Victoria's eyes narrowed. "Don't be dramatic, Ethan. We want what's best for you." "No," he said, surprising himself with the steadiness in his voice. "You want what's best for the family name. There's a difference." "End it," his mother demanded. "End whatever this is with that girl. Focus on your future, on your responsibilities. I won't stand by and watch you throw away everything we've built." Something snapped inside Ethan. Years of compliance, of trying to be the perfect son, of suffocating under the weight of expectations. It all came rushing to the surface. "No." The word hung in the air between them. Victoria's face paled. "What did you say?" "I said no." Ethan's hands were trembling, but his voice remained strong. "I won't end things with Lily. I won't let you control my life anymore." "You're being foolish," Victoria hissed. "Think about what you're saying." "I have thought about it. For the first time in my life, I'm thinking clearly." He moved around the desk to face his mother directly. "I'm done letting you dictate my choices. I'm done pretending to be someone I'm not." Victoria's composure cracked slightly. "If you continue down this path, there will be consequences." "Then I'll face them," Ethan said. "But I won't give up Lily. Not for you, not for the family name, not for anything." His mother stared at him for a long moment, her face a mask of disbelief and anger. Without another word, she turned and strode out of the office, her heels clicking a sharp retreat. Ethan sank into his chair, his hands shaking as the adrenaline drained from his body. He'd done it. He'd finally stood up to his mother. But as the reality of his decision settled over him, questions began to swirl in his mind. What would his father say? What about the company? His inheritance? The life he'd been groomed for since birth? He buried his face in his hands, overwhelmed by the magnitude of what he'd just done. The autumn wind whistled through Maple Ridge's streets as Lily wiped down tables at the cafe. The usually bustling atmosphere had grown heavy over the past few days, matching Ethan's increasingly somber mood. She caught glimpses of him through his office window, hunched over paperwork, his phone constantly buzzing with messages he seemed reluctant to answer. The cafe staff whispered about raised voices heard from upstairs, about Victoria Montgomery's dramatic exit, and about Ethan's dark circles growing deeper each day. Lily tried to focus on her work, but her heart ached watching him struggle. During their brief interactions, his smiles seemed forced, his words careful and measured. The warmth that usually radiated from him had dimmed, replaced by a weariness that seemed to seep into his bones. "You should go home," he told her one evening, his voice rough with exhaustion. "It's getting late." "I don't mind staying," Lily replied, reaching for his hand across the counter. "You don't have to handle everything alone?" Ethan squeezed her hand, but pulled away quickly when his phone buzzed again. "I just need time to sort things out," he said, disappearing back upstairs. The following days brought a parade of serious-looking men in expensive suits, entering and leaving Ethan's office. Each time, he emerged looking more drained, his shoulders heavy with invisible weights. Lily threw herself into her work, trying to take some burden off him by managing the cafe's day-to-day operations. She handled customer complaints, arranged schedules, and kept everything running smoothly, hoping it would give him space to deal with his family situation. One particularly quiet evening, as she was closing up, her phone lit up with a message from Ethan. "Can you stay? I need to talk to you." 20 minutes later, they sat at their usual corner table. two untouched cups of coffee between them. The cafe was dark, except for the soft glow of a single lamp, casting long shadows across Ethan's troubled face. "I'm sorry I've been distant," he started, his fingers tracing the rim of his cup. "Everything's been—" "I know," Lily said softly, reaching across the table to still his restless hands. "They're threatening to remove me from the company," he continued, his voice breaking slightly. "Not just as future CEO, completely. My father called today. He said I need to come to my senses, or they'll cut me off entirely." Lily's heart clenched at the pain in his voice. "Oh, Ethan. I've spent my whole life trying to be what they wanted," he said, looking up at her with tired eyes. "The perfect son, the worthy heir. But now—" He took a shaky breath. "I'm terrified, Lily. I'm terrified of losing my family, everything I've worked for. But I'm even more terrified of losing you." Lily moved to sit beside him, wrapping her arms around his shoulders. She could feel him trembling slightly. "I don't know what to do," he whispered. "For the first time in my life, I don't have a plan. No strategy. Nothing." "Hey," Lily said, turning his face toward her. "Look at me. Whatever happens, whatever you decide, we'll face it together. You don't have to have all the answers right now." "You'd stay? Even with all this mess?" "I'm not going anywhere," she promised, her thumb gently wiping away a tear that had escaped down his cheek. "We'll figure this out, one day at a time." Ethan leaned into her embrace, some of the tension finally leaving his shoulders. They sat there in the quiet cafe, holding each other as the night deepened around them, both aware that whatever came next would change everything. But at least they wouldn't face it alone. The morning light filtered through the cafe windows as Lily arranged fresh flowers on the counter. She glanced up to see Ethan walking down the stairs from his office, looking more relaxed than he had in days. He'd traded his usual business attire for a casual sweater and jeans. "Want to take a walk?" he asked, a small smile playing at his lips. They strolled through the park, their shoulders brushing occasionally. The autumn air was crisp, and fallen leaves crunched beneath their feet. Ethan reached for her hand, intertwining their fingers. "I've been thinking," he said, his thumb tracing circles on her palm. "I've spent so much time worried about what my family thinks, I almost forgot about the people who actually support me." Lily squeezed his hand encouragingly. "Your friends?" "Yeah," he led her to a nearby bench. "They've been asking to meet you properly, not just as the cafe's waitress, but as—" He paused, color rising in his cheeks. "As the woman I'm falling for." Lily's heart skipped a beat. "Really? Would you come to dinner tonight? Just a small group at Marcus's place. He's my oldest friend, and his wife Sarah is amazing. A few others will be there too." Despite her immediate excitement, anxiety crept in. "What if they don't like me? What if they think I'm not—" "Hey," Ethan interrupted gently, turning to face her. "They'll love you. Just be yourself." That evening, Lily stood before Marcus's impressive townhouse, fidgeting with the hem of her dress. Ethan's hand on the small of her back steadied her as they walked up the steps. The door opened to reveal a tall man with kind eyes and a welcoming smile. "Finally," Marcus exclaimed, pulling Ethan into a quick hug before turning to Lily. "And you must be the famous Lily. Come in, come in." Inside, the house was warm and inviting, filled with the sounds of laughter and conversation. Sarah, Marcus's wife, emerged from the kitchen with a glass of wine for Lily. "We've been dying to meet you properly," she said, her smile genuine. Lily noticed how different this welcome felt from the cold reception she'd received from Ethan's family. Here, the atmosphere was relaxed, the conversations flowing naturally. As they settled around the dinner table, Lily found herself seated between Ethan and Claire, a vivacious photographer who immediately engaged her in a discussion about art. James, a local journalist, leaned across the table to ask about her paintings, having seen them at the cafe's exhibition. "I still can't believe you convinced our workaholic friend here to actually take breaks," Marcus teased, nudging Ethan. "We've been trying for years." "She didn't convince me," Ethan replied, his eyes meeting Lily's. "She just made me want to." The evening progressed with stories, laughter, and genuine warmth. Lily watched as Ethan relaxed completely for the first time in weeks, his smile reaching his eyes as he bantered with his friends. In the kitchen, helping Sarah with dessert, Lily overheard Claire telling Ethan, "She's wonderful. I haven't seen you this happy in years." Later, as they gathered in the living room, Marcus raised his glass. "To new friends," he said, looking directly at Lily, "who become family." Lily felt tears prick at her eyes as everyone echoed the toast. These people didn't care about her background or social status. They cared about how she made Ethan smile, how she engaged in their conversations, how she fit naturally into their circle of friendship. Ethan's arm wrapped around her waist, pulling her close. In that moment, surrounded by warmth and acceptance, Lily realized that maybe, just maybe, there was hope for their future, after all. Scene 1. The morning sun cast long shadows through the windows of the Montgomery estate as Ethan sat rigidly in his father's study. The antique grandfather clock ticked steadily in the corner, marking each heavy moment. His mother stood by the fireplace, her posture perfect as always, while his father sat behind the massive oak desk, fingers steepled together. "It's time to be realistic, Ethan," his father said, his voice firm but tired. "The board meeting is next month. We need to show unity, strength. The Montgomery name carries weight, and with that comes responsibility." Ethan's throat felt dry. He loosened his tie slightly, feeling the pressure building in his chest. "I don't see what my personal life has to do with the company's success." His mother stepped forward, her heels clicking against the hardwood floor. "Darling, we've arranged for you to meet Caroline Henderson next week. Her father's company would make an excellent merger partner, and she's a lovely girl from a respectable family." "I'm not interested in arranged meetings," Ethan said, his voice quiet but firm. "I'm with Lily." His father's hand came down hard on the desk. "That girl has no place in this family, no connections, no understanding of our world." He took a deep breath, composing himself. "Son, we're giving you a choice. End this dalliance with the waitress, marry someone suitable, and take your rightful place as heir to everything we've built. Or what?" Ethan's heart pounded. "Or you'll be cut off, completely." His mother's voice was ice cold. "No inheritance, no position in the company, no access to any family resources. Is that really what you want? To throw away generations of hard work for some girl you barely know?" Ethan stood up, pacing the room. The weight of their words pressed down on him like a physical force. Everything he'd been groomed for, everything he'd worked toward, it could all disappear. The cafe had been purchased with family money. His comfortable life, his security, his future, all of it hung in the balance. But then he thought of Lily's smile, her genuine kindness, the way she saw the world through an artist's eyes. He remembered their conversations by the lake, the way she listened without judgment, how she encouraged him to follow his heart. "You have 1 week to make your decision," his father announced. "Think carefully about what you're risking, son. Think about your future." Ethan walked to the window, staring out at the manicured gardens below. Years of obedience and meeting expectations flashed through his mind. The constant pressure to be perfect, to maintain appearances, to put the family name above personal happiness. It all suddenly felt suffocating. His hands clenched into fists. Something inside him shifted, like a key turning in a lock. He turned back to face his parents, standing straighter than before. "No," he said quietly. "What did you say?" his mother asked sharply. "I said no." His voice grew stronger. "I won't let you control my life anymore. I won't let you dictate who I can love or how I should live." His father rose from behind the desk. "Think very carefully about your next words, Ethan." "I have thought about them. For years I've done everything you wanted. I've been the perfect son, the ideal heir. But I'm done. I'm going to make my own choices now, whatever the consequences might be." He walked toward the door, his steps sure despite his racing heart. As he reached for the handle, he paused. "I'll be back tomorrow, and we're going to have a real conversation, not about ultimatums, but about respect and understanding. It's your choice whether you want to listen." Ethan's footsteps echoed through the empty hallway of the Montgomery mansion as he made his way to the formal dining room. His parents sat at opposite ends of the long mahogany table, the morning light streaming through tall windows, casting long shadows across their faces. "I've made my decision," Ethan said, his voice steady despite the nervous flutter in his stomach. He remained standing, hands clasped behind his back. "I won't marry Caroline Henderson or anyone else you choose for me." His mother's teacup clattered against its saucer. "You're being ridiculous, Ethan. Think about what you're throwing away." "I have thought about it," he replied, meeting her gaze. "I've thought about nothing else for weeks. But I won't live my life according to a script you've written for me." His father's jaw tightened. "This isn't just about you, son. This is about generations of hard work, about maintaining our position in society." "No," Ethan said firmly. "This is about control. It's about you thinking you can dictate every aspect of my life because of our family name." He pulled out a chair and sat down, leaning forward with intensity. "I love Lily. She makes me happy in a way that no arranged marriage ever could. She sees me for who I am, not for my last name or my bank account." "Love," his mother scoffed. "Love doesn't pay bills or maintain social standing." "Maybe that's the problem," Ethan responded, his voice growing stronger. "You've both forgotten what it means to choose happiness over obligation. When was the last time either of you did something simply because it brought you joy?" A heavy silence fell over the room. His father's expression flickered with something that might have been recognition. "I won't apologize for choosing Lily," Ethan continued. "I won't apologize for wanting a life that means something beyond business deals and social appearances. If that means I lose my inheritance, then so be it." His father stood up slowly. "You would throw away everything we've built, everything we've prepared you for?" "No," Ethan said, rising to meet his father's height. "I'm building something new, something that matters to me. If you can't accept that, then that's your choice to make." Without waiting for a response, Ethan turned and walked out of the dining room. His heart pounded, but his steps didn't falter. He drove straight to Lily's apartment, taking the stairs 2 at a time. When she opened the door, her eyes widened at his expression. "Ethan, what happened?" He pulled her into a tight embrace, breathing in the familiar scent of her shampoo. I told them everything." Lily's arms wrapped around him, strong and steady. "How did they take it?" "About as well as we expected," he said, pulling back to look at her. "But I don't care anymore. I'm done letting them control my life." Tears welled up in Lily's eyes as she reached up to touch his face. "Are you sure? This is such a huge sacrifice." "The only sacrifice would be letting you go," he said softly. "Everything else is just stuff, just money. This is real." They held each other close, their hearts beating in sync. The morning sun streamed through Lily's window, painting them in warm light. Though they both knew there would be more battles ahead, in that moment they found strength in their unity, in the certainty that they had made the right choice. The morning sun hadn't yet burned through the fog when Lily noticed people staring at her on her way to work. Whispers followed her down Main Street, and a few folks even crossed to the other side to avoid her. Something wasn't right. Her phone buzzed with a text from Ethan. "Turn on the local news, now." Lily ducked into the cafe and rushed to the small TV mounted in the corner. Her hands shook as she grabbed the remote. The screen flickered to life, showing Eleanor Montgomery, Ethan's mother, standing at a podium outside the family's corporate headquarters. "And while we've always protected the reputation of both families involved," Eleanor was saying, her voice sharp and clear, "recent events have forced me to speak out. The relationship between Lily Chen and my son is built on deception." Lily's legs went weak. She grabbed the counter for support as Eleanor continued. "What the town doesn't know is that Lily's grandmother, Margaret Chen, was more than just an acquaintance of our family. She was involved in a scandal that nearly destroyed the Montgomery name 50 years ago." The cafe grew silent as other customers turned to stare at Lily. Eleanor's voice filled the room. "Margaret Chen manipulated my father-in-law's trust during a vulnerable time, attempting to gain control of company assets. When that failed, she tried to blackmail him. Now, her granddaughter appears in our town, targeting my son. The pattern is clear." "That's not true," Lily whispered, but her voice was lost in the murmurs spreading through the cafe. The bell above the door chimed as Ethan burst in. His face was flushed, tie askew, as if he'd run all the way there. "Lily," he called out, pushing through the crowd to reach her. Someone in the cafe shouted, "Gold digger!" Another voice added, "Like grandmother, like granddaughter." Ethan wrapped his arm around Lily's shoulders, guiding her toward the back office. But the damage was done. Through the window, they could see people gathering outside, phones raised to take pictures. "I don't understand," Lily said, her voice trembling. "The letters we found, they showed your grandfather and my grandmother were friends. She helped him through a difficult time." "My mother twisted everything," Ethan said, running his hands through his hair in frustration. "She's using half-truths to paint the worst possible picture." The cafe manager approached them, wringing his hands. "I'm sorry, Lily, but with all this controversy, I think it's best if you don't come in for a while." Lily nodded numbly, gathering her things. As they left through the back door, they could hear the crowd out front growing larger. They made it to Ethan's car just as his phone started ringing. The screen showed his father's name. Ethan declined the call, but messages started pouring in from business associates and family friends. "The board is meeting this afternoon," Ethan said quietly, reading one of the messages. "They're questioning my judgment. The family's threatening to remove me from my position completely." Lily touched his arm gently. "Ethan, I'm so sorry. This is all because of me." "No," he cut her off firmly. "This is because of them. Because they'd rather destroy everything than let me make my own choices." Through the car windows, they could see people pointing, taking pictures, shaking their heads. The small town that had once felt like a refuge now felt like a fishbowl, with everyone watching, judging, condemning. "What do we do now?" Lily asked, her voice small but steady. Ethan took her hand, squeezing it tightly. "We stay together. We fight back. The truth has to count for something." But as they drove through the streets of Maple Ridge, past the disapproving faces and pointing fingers, they both felt the weight of what they were up against. Everything Ethan had feared losing, his position, his reputation, his place in the community, was slipping away before their eyes. The boardroom felt suffocating. Ethan sat at the long mahogany table, his father's disappointed gaze burning into him from one end, his mother's cold stare from the other. The family lawyers had spent the last hour outlining exactly what he stood to lose. "Your great-grandfather built this company from nothing," His father's voice echoed through the room. "Are you really willing to throw it all away for her?" Ethan loosened his tie, feeling the weight of generations pressing down on his shoulders. The morning newspaper lay spread across the table. His and Lily's faces splashed across the front page. The headline screamed, "Montgomery heir caught in family scandal." "Think about the employees," his mother added, her voice carefully measured. "Hundreds of families depend on this company. Your infatuation could affect all of them." The words hit him like physical blows. He'd always known his position came with responsibility, but now it felt like chains dragging him down. His phone buzzed again. Another message from Lily. He hadn't answered her calls since the meeting began 3 hours ago. "We can fix this," the head lawyer said, sliding a document across the table. "A public statement denouncing the relationship, a few strategic appearances with Caroline Wheeler's daughter." He tapped the paper meaningfully. The board would accept that. Ethan stared at the document until the words blurred together. His hands felt cold and clammy as he picked up the pen. The thought of losing everything, not just his inheritance, but the ability to help all those families, made him feel sick. Back at his apartment that evening, Ethan paced the floor, ignoring the dozens of missed calls from Lily. The sun set, casting long shadows across the room. He'd always prided himself on doing the right thing, but now he couldn't tell what that was anymore. When his doorbell rang, he knew who it would be. Lily stood there, her eyes red from crying but her chin held high. "You're not even going to fight it, are you?" she asked quietly. Ethan couldn't meet her gaze. "It's not that simple, Lily. The company—" "I know about the company," she cut him off. "I know about the responsibility. But what about us? What about everything we found out about our families? About your grandfather and my grandmother?" "Maybe," his voice cracked. "Maybe they were right. Maybe some things are better left in the past." Lily stepped back as if he'd slapped her. "You don't mean that." But Ethan remained silent, his shoulders hunched under the invisible weight of his family's legacy. He wanted to reach for her, to tell her they could fight this together, but the words wouldn't come. "I understand," Lily finally said, her voice barely a whisper. "You have to protect your family's reputation, and I—" She took a shaky breath. "I have to protect my heart." She turned away, wiping tears from her cheeks. "I'm leaving Maple Ridge. Tonight. I won't be the reason you lose everything you've worked for." "Lily," he started, but she was already walking away, her footsteps echoing in the hallway. In her small apartment, Lily threw clothes into her suitcase, trying to ignore the memories that clung to every corner. The sketch she'd drawn of Ethan laughing in the cafe, the dried flower from their walk by the lake, the newspaper clipping from her art show. Her hands trembled as she packed, but her resolve remained firm. She loved him too much to watch him tear himself apart, trying to choose between his duty and his heart. Sometimes love meant knowing when to let go, even when every fiber of your being screamed to hold on tighter. The empty cardboard boxes scattered around Lily's apartment made everything feel temporary, like her life was dissolving into bubble wrap and packing tape. She folded another sweater, tucking it carefully into her suitcase, when urgent knocking echoed through her apartment. "Lily!" Ethan's voice carried through the door. "Please, I need to talk to you." She hesitated, her hand hovering over the doorknob. Her heart raced as she opened the door to find him standing there, his tie loose and his usually perfect hair disheveled. "You can't leave," he said, breathless. His eyes were red-rimmed, and his voice cracked with emotion. "I've been such a fool." Lily wrapped her arms around herself, trying to hold herself together. "Ethan, we both know this is for the best. Your family?" "No," he cut her off, stepping into the apartment. I've spent my whole life trying to be what they wanted. The perfect son, the responsible heir, always putting duty first. He ran his hands through his hair, making it even messier. But when I got home tonight, I looked at myself in the mirror and didn't recognize who I'd become. Lily's breath caught in her throat as he moved closer, his eyes intense with determination. I've been a coward, he continued, his voice growing stronger. I've been hiding behind responsibility and duty because I was afraid of disappointing everyone, afraid of failing. He reached for her hands, holding them between his own. But the thought of losing you, that terrifies me more than anything else. What about the company? Lily asked, her voice barely above a whisper. All those families that depend on it? The company will survive, he said firmly. My father threatened the same thing when my sister wanted to become an artist instead of joining the board. He eventually came around. And if he doesn't this time... Ethan shrugged, a small smile playing at his lips. Then maybe it's time for the Montgomery Empire to learn that there are more important things than tradition. Lily's eyes welled with tears. Are you sure? This morning you couldn't even look at me, and now... This morning I was trying to be the son my parents wanted, he interrupted, reaching up to brush away a tear that had escaped down her cheek. But now I want to be the man you deserve. The man I want to be. He glanced around at the boxes and half-packed suitcases. I want to build a life with you, Lily. Right here in Maple Ridge, or anywhere else you want to go. I don't care about the inheritance or the family name. I just care about you. Lily's heart thundered in her chest as she looked up at him. The uncertainty and fear that had clouded his eyes earlier were gone, replaced by clear determination and love. It won't be easy, she warned softly. Your mother will either accept it or she won't, he finished. But I'm done letting her control my happiness. He pulled her closer, one hand cupping her face. I love you, Lily. Stay. Fight this with me. Instead of answering, Lily rose up on her tiptoes and pressed her lips to his. The kiss was gentle at first, then deeper, full of promise and hope. When they finally pulled apart, they were both smiling despite the tears in their eyes. They held each other close in the midst of the half-packed boxes, knowing that the road ahead would be difficult. But for the first time since the scandal broke, they both felt truly certain about something. They would face whatever came next, together. Scene 1. The choice. The morning light filtered through the cafe windows as Ethan stared at the formal letter in his hands. His mother's elegant handwriting was sharp and decisive, much like the words she'd chosen. You are hereby formally removed from the Montgomery Family Trust. Lily placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. I'm so sorry, Ethan. He looked up at her, his eyes clear and determined. Don't be. I knew this was coming. He folded the letter carefully and tucked it into his pocket. Mother never could handle not getting her way. The bell above the cafe door chimed, and Elizabeth Montgomery swept in, her designer heels clicking against the hardwood floor. Behind her, Ethan's father followed, looking uncomfortable but resolute. So, Elizabeth said, her voice cutting through the morning quiet. You've received our decision? Ethan stood, straightening his shoulders. Yes, I have. And? His mother raised an perfectly shaped eyebrow. Have you reconsidered your position? There's nothing to reconsider, Ethan replied firmly. I love Lily, and I'm choosing her. Elizabeth's composed facade cracked slightly. You're throwing away generations of hard work, Ethan. The Montgomery name means something in this town. Are you really willing to destroy that for her? She glanced dismissively at Lily. The Montgomery name means nothing if it comes at the cost of my happiness, Ethan said, his voice steady. I'm not destroying anything, Mother. I'm building something new. Don't be naive, Elizabeth snapped. What will you do? Run this little cafe forever? Live in some tiny apartment? Is that really the life you want? Yes, Ethan answered without hesitation. If it's with Lily, yes. Elizabeth's face hardened. Then perhaps I haven't made myself clear enough. If you continue with this foolishness, you won't just lose your inheritance. Every contact, every business connection, every door that the Montgomery name could open for you, they'll all be closed. Forever. Lily started to step forward, but Ethan gently touched her arm, stopping her. You know what, Mother? For the first time in my life, I don't care about those doors. I don't need them. You ungrateful, Elizabeth began, but Ethan cut her off. No, Mother. I've spent my entire life being grateful. Grateful for the opportunities, grateful for the privilege, grateful for the name. But I've never been truly happy. He reached for Lily's hand, intertwining their fingers. Not until now. Elizabeth's eyes narrowed as she played her final card. Your grandfather would be ashamed of you. No, Ethan said quietly. Grandfather would understand. He knew what it meant to love someone despite what society thought. That's why he protected Lily's grandmother all those years ago. He knew that some things are worth fighting for. The color drained from Elizabeth's face. For a moment, she stood perfectly still. Then she turned to Ethan's father. Richard, say something to your son. Richard Montgomery looked at his son for a long moment. Then, to everyone's surprise, he shook his head. No, Elizabeth. I think he's said enough for both of us. He turned and walked out of the cafe, leaving his wife standing alone. Elizabeth's carefully maintained composure finally cracked. This isn't over, Ethan. You'll regret this decision. The only thing I would regret, Ethan said firmly, is letting you dictate my happiness. Goodbye, Mother. Elizabeth's heels clicked sharply against the floor as she stormed out, the bell chiming angrily behind her. After Elizabeth's dramatic exit, the cafe settled into an uncomfortable silence. Ethan's hands trembled slightly as he locked the front door and flipped the closed sign. Lily watched him from behind the counter, her heart aching for the pain he'd endured. Let's go upstairs, he said softly. I need to show you something. In Ethan's office above the cafe, he pulled out an old wooden box from his desk drawer. The rich mahogany was worn smooth with age, its brass hinges tarnished but still functional. Inside lay the letter they'd discovered weeks ago, along with several other yellowed envelopes. I found these last night, Ethan explained, carefully spreading the papers across his desk. They were hidden in a false bottom of the box. Lily picked up one of the letters, her grandmother's familiar handwriting making her throat tight with emotion. My dear friend, she read aloud, I know the burden you carry is heavy, but you must stay strong. Your grandson will need guidance one day, just as your son does now. There's more, Ethan said, picking up another letter. Your grandmother wasn't just my grandfather's friend. She was his confidant during the hardest time of his life. When my father was young, the Montgomery business almost failed. Your grandmother helped save it. Lily's eyes widened as she read through more letters. She invested everything she had in the company? Ethan nodded. Grandfather wanted to repay her, but she refused. She said friendship wasn't about keeping score. He picked up another letter, this one written in his grandfather's hand. She made him promise instead that he'd remember what really matters in life isn't money or status. Love, Lily whispered, touching the words on the page. Yes. Ethan's voice grew soft. He wrote here that he hoped his family would remember that lesson. But somewhere along the way we forgot. Lily looked up at him, seeing the mixture of pain and determination in his eyes. Until now. Until you, he corrected, taking her hands in his. You reminded me what's really important, Lily. just like your grandmother did for my grandfather. The setting sun painted the office in warm, golden light as Ethan pulled Lily closer. I don't care about the money or the family name anymore. None of it means anything without you. Are you sure? Lily asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Your whole life has been built around that legacy. My life is just beginning, Ethan said firmly. Right here, right now, with you. He squeezed her hands gently. Stay with me, Lily. Not just tomorrow or next week, but forever. Help me build something new, something real. Tears welled up in Lily's eyes as she nodded. Yes, she breathed. Yes, I'll stay. They stood together in the quiet office, surrounded by the letters that told a story of love overcoming society's expectations. Outside, the town of Maple Ridge continued its everyday bustle, but in that moment their world was perfectly still and peaceful. Ethan pulled Lily into his arms, and she rested her head against his chest, listening to his steady heartbeat. The letters on the desk testified to a legacy of love that had come full circle, connecting past to present in ways they never could have imagined. The morning light streamed through the cafe windows as Ethan and Lily sat at their usual corner table, surrounded by sketches and floor plans. The familiar scent of coffee filled the air while they worked on their newest dream together. What if we moved these display panels here? Lily suggested, pointing to the layout. Her fingers, stained with charcoal from earlier sketching, traced new lines on the paper. It would create a better flow for visitors. Ethan leaned closer, his shoulder brushing against hers. That could work. And look at all this wall space. Perfect for larger pieces. His eyes sparkled with excitement as he imagined their vision coming to life. The cafe's back room, which had stored extra supplies and old furniture, was being transformed into something special. Workers had already started clearing the space, revealing beautiful exposed brick walls that would serve as the perfect backdrop for artwork. I can't believe we're really doing this, Lily said, her voice soft with wonder. She looked around at the construction mess, seeing past the dust and debris to what would soon be their gallery. Neither can I, Ethan admitted, running a hand through his hair. But it feels right, doesn't it? Combining your artistic vision with my business experience. They spent the next few weeks working side by side, painting walls, installing lighting, and reaching out to local artists. Word spread quickly through the small town about their project, and soon their inbox was filled with submission requests from painters, sculptors, and photographers. Look at this one, Lily called out one afternoon, holding up a portfolio. Sarah Jensen, she does these amazing watercolor landscapes of Maple Ridge. Ethan walked over, wiping paint from his hands. Perfect. That's exactly what we're looking for. Art that tells our community's story. The transformation continued, day by day. The old storage room became an elegant gallery space, with track lighting that highlighted every curve and corner. They kept the brick walls exposed, but painted the other walls a clean white, creating a perfect canvas for the artwork they would display. Finally, opening night arrived. The gallery space buzzed with excitement as people filtered in from the cafe. Local artists stood proudly beside their work, chatting with visitors and sharing their stories. Sarah Jensen's watercolors captured the sunset over Maple Ridge's hills, while Tom Miller's photographs showed intimate portraits of townspeople at work and play. Lily moved through the crowd, her simple black dress elegant against the white walls. She stopped to talk with each artist, her genuine enthusiasm for their work evident in every conversation. Ethan watched her from across the room, his heart swelling with pride and love. As the evening wound down, Ethan found Lily standing in front of a particular piece, a painting of their cafe on a busy morning, sunlight streaming through the windows and catching the steam rising from coffee cups. The artist had captured the warmth and welcome that made their place special. We did it, Ethan said softly, slipping his arm around her waist. Lily leaned into him, her eyes still on the painting. We did. It's more than I ever dreamed possible. Around them, the gallery hummed with conversation and laughter. Artists and art lovers mingled freely, creating exactly the kind of community space they'd hoped for. The cafe's regular customers wandered in and out, discovering new aspects of their favorite hangout. Ethan pressed a gentle kiss to Lily's temple. "Thank you," he whispered. "For what?" "For helping me see that sometimes the best dreams are the ones we never knew we had." They stood together in comfortable silence, surrounded by art and possibility, their shared vision finally realized. The morning sun cast long shadows through the gallery windows as Ethan adjusted a newly arrived sculpture. 3 months had passed since their opening night, and the space had become everything they'd hoped for and more. Local artists regularly dropped by with new pieces, and the walls were never empty for long. Lily walked in carrying 2 steaming cups of coffee from the cafe. "I thought you could use this," she said, setting one down beside him. Her eyes sparkled as she surveyed their shared accomplishment. "Perfect timing," Ethan replied, straightening up and taking a grateful sip. "The Morrison twins just dropped off their new collection. Wait until you see it." Together they walked through the gallery, discussing placement options for the new pieces. Their easy rapport had grown stronger with each passing day, their shared passion for the gallery cementing their bond even further. "Remember when we first talked about this?" Lily asked, gesturing to the space around them. "It seemed so impossible then." Ethan nodded, his expression softening. "Back when I was still trying to please everyone but myself." He wrapped an arm around her waist. "You helped me find the courage to choose my own path." The gallery had become more than just a business venture. It was a testament to their love story, their rebellion against expectations, and their commitment to creating something meaningful together. Every decision they made as a team. "Look at this," Lily said, stopping in front of a new painting. It showed 2 people sitting at a cafe table, their faces turned away but their body language speaking volumes about their connection. "Jenny captured us perfectly, didn't she?" The painting had been done by one of their regular artists who had witnessed their story unfold from the beginning. She'd surprised them with it last week, calling it the first coffee. As they continued their walk through the gallery, they passed other pieces that seemed to tell their story. There was a watercolor of the lake where they'd had their first heart-to-heart conversation, a photograph of the cafe during a busy morning rush, and an abstract piece that somehow captured the emotional turmoil of their early struggles. "Sometimes I can't believe how far we've come," Ethan admitted, pausing in front of a particularly striking piece. "Remember when we were afraid to even be seen together?" Lily squeezed his hand. "And now look at us, running this beautiful space together, supporting local artists, building something that matters." They stopped at the far end of the gallery, where a wall of smaller pieces created a mosaic of local life. Each artwork represented a different aspect of their community: the old church steeple at sunrise, children playing in the park, the weekly farmers market, the cafe's regular customers lost in conversation. "This is my favorite spot," Lily said, leaning her head against Ethan's shoulder. "It reminds me that we're part of something bigger than ourselves." Ethan pulled her closer. "We've created more than just a gallery, haven't we? We've made a home here, a real one." They stood there together, surrounded by art that told not just their story, but the story of their whole community. Each piece on the walls represented a memory, a milestone, or a moment shared between them. It was their love story, painted, photographed, and sculpted by the very people who had watched it unfold. The letter arrived on a Tuesday morning, its crisp envelope bearing the Montgomery family's lawyer's letterhead. Ethan's hands trembled slightly as he opened it, Lily standing close beside him in their gallery office. "What is it?" Lily asked, noticing the color drain from his face. Richard Sterling, Ethan said, his voice tight. He's filing a complaint against us, claiming we've been displaying artwork without proper licensing. He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture Lily knew meant he was deeply troubled. He was my father's closest friend and business partner. Lily took the letter, scanning its contents. But that's ridiculous. We have all the necessary permits. It's not about the permits, Ethan said, pacing the small office. It's about control. Richard always wanted to keep me in line with the family's wishes. This is his way of trying to force us back under their thumb. Over the next few days, they discovered that Richard had been approaching their artists, spreading rumors about financial instability and questioning their business practices. Several artists had already called, expressing concern about their contracts. He's trying to destroy everything we've built, Lily said one evening, as they sat among their beloved artwork after closing time. The gallery, usually a source of joy, felt heavy with tension. Ethan reached for her hand. We won't let him. They spent hours reaching out to their artists personally, reassuring them and showing complete transparency in their business dealings. Many stood by them, having witnessed their dedication firsthand. But Richard wasn't done. He began showing up at community events, his presence a constant reminder of the power the Montgomery family still held. He spoke to local business owners, suggesting that association with Ethan's rebellious venture might harm their reputations. We need to confront him, Lily said one morning, watching another artist leave with their work. We can't keep losing people like this. Ethan nodded, his jaw set with determination. You're right, but we do it together. They invited Richard to the gallery after hours. He arrived looking impeccable in his tailored suit, a practiced smile on his face that didn't reach his eyes. Ethan, he said smoothly, I hoped you'd come to your senses eventually. We asked you here to stop this, Richard, Ethan said firmly, standing tall beside Lily. The gallery is legitimate. Our permits are in order. Your attempts to undermine us are not only unethical, but potentially illegal. Richard's smile faltered. Your father trusted me to look after you. No, Ethan interrupted, his voice strong and clear. My father trusted you to be his friend. Instead, you're trying to destroy his son's happiness out of some misguided sense of duty. Lily stepped forward, her hand finding Ethan's. We've built something beautiful here, something that matters to this community. Why can't you see that? Look around, Ethan gestured to the artwork surrounding them. This isn't just a rebellion against my family's expectations. It's a dream we've made real, and we're not going to let you tear it down. Richard's composure cracked slightly as he looked around the gallery, really seeing it for the first time. The walls told stories of love, community, and courage. Each piece represented not just art, but the trust local artists had placed in them. I have documentation of every attempt you've made to sabotage us, Ethan continued. Every conversation with our artists, every rumor you've spread. We can make this difficult, or you can walk away and let us live our lives. The silence that followed was heavy with years of expectations and control. Finally, Richard straightened his tie, a sign of resignation Ethan recognized from countless business meetings. Your father would be proud, Richard said quietly, surprising them both. Not of your choices, perhaps, but of your strength in defending them. The small Italian restaurant buzzed with warm conversation and laughter. Twinkling lights hung from the ceiling, casting a soft glow over the intimate gathering of friends who had stood by Ethan and Lily through everything. The private room at Mario's was filled with the aroma of fresh garlic bread and marinara sauce, creating the perfect backdrop for their celebration. Ethan watched as Lily chatted animatedly with Sarah, their first artist who had stuck with them despite Richard's pressure. Her eyes sparkled when she laughed, and his heart swelled with love for her. She caught his gaze across the table and smiled, that special smile she reserved just for him. "I can't believe how far you two have come," said Mark, Ethan's childhood friend, who had chosen friendship over family connections. He raised his glass of wine. "From that first day at the cafe to this, it's like something out of a story." Jenny, their gallery assistant, nodded in agreement. "You should have seen them during the whole Richard situation. They were incredible, so strong together." "To Ethan and Lily," Sarah called out, lifting her glass. "Who taught us all that love really can conquer anything?" The room echoed with the sound of clinking glasses and warm wishes. Lily blushed, and Ethan squeezed her hand under the table. "We wouldn't be here without all of you," Lily said, her voice full of emotion. "Each person in this room helped us build something special." "Not just the gallery," Ethan added, looking around at their chosen family. "But a community, a place where art and love can flourish without judgment." Mario, the restaurant owner who had been catering their gallery events from the beginning, brought out a special tiramisu he'd made just for the occasion. "For the couple who brought so much beauty to our little town," he said with his thick Italian accent. As they enjoyed the dessert, conversations flowed freely around the table. Stories were shared about the gallery's early days, the challenges they'd faced, and the victories they'd celebrated together. There was no mention of the Montgomery family fortune or society expectations. Those concerns seemed to belong to another lifetime, now. Later, as the evening wound down, Ethan noticed Lily slip away from the table. He found her on the restaurant's small balcony, watching as the sun began its descent over Maple Ridge. The sky was painted in brilliant oranges and pinks, a masterpiece that even their most talented artists couldn't replicate. "Hey," he said softly, joining her at the railing. "Hey yourself," she replied, leaning into him as he wrapped an arm around her waist. "What are you thinking about?" "Everything," she said. "How different my life is from when I first stepped off that bus. How scared I was then, and how complete I feel now." Ethan took her hand, running his thumb over her knuckles. "I never thought I'd find someone who would make me brave enough to stand up for what I really wanted." The sun continued its slow descent, painting the town they'd made their home in golden light. Below them, people walked past the gallery's windows, some stopping to admire the latest exhibition visible through the glass. "Look at that," Lily whispered, pointing to where the last rays of sunlight caught the gallery's sign, making it glow. "It's like a sign." Ethan squeezed her hand, feeling the perfect rightness of the moment. They stood together, watching the sun sink lower, their hearts full with the love they'd fought so hard to protect.